Colombia has extended its mandatory lockdown until July 15th as the number of COVID-19 cases and deaths continues to rise. A spokesperson for China's Ministry of National Defense noted on Wednesday that shifting blame onto China will not help the United States solve its domestic problems. Volunteers are taking part in the first COVID-19 vaccine trial on the African continent at a hospital in South Africa. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. Colombia has extended its mandatory lockdown until July 15th as the number of COVID-19 cases and deaths continues to rise.
The current conditions of compulsory preventive isolation, where we are recovering productive life, where progress is also being made in opening up trade, are going to continue. The rule as it stands today will be maintained until July 15. We continue to move forward with tests in municipalities that have not had COVID-19 infections. We start tests in restaurants and also in religious places, which we are also going to expand to many more municipalities.
Latin America has now reported more than 100,000 COVID-19 deaths. The total number of confirmed cases in the region has surpassed 2 million. More than half of this number corresponds to Brazil, which has already reported almost 53,000 COVID-19 deaths. The second most affected country in the region is Peru, with more than 260,000 coronavirus cases and a death toll of over 8,000. Next ranks Chile with over 254,000 cases, followed by Mexico, which has confirmed over 191,000. Meanwhile, in Colombia, the number of COVID-19 deaths has risen to more than 2,000 and the number of cases has surpassed 73,000. And as Chile surpassed 250,000 coronavirus cases, it faces a critical shortage of ventilators for critically ill patients. The Chilean Ministry of Health reported over 3,600 new coronavirus cases this Wednesday and over 200 COVID-19 deaths, bringing the death toll to over 4,700. The government also reported that 392 patients are in a critical condition. In the midst of the health crisis, on Monday, the Chilean justice system accepted a complaint filed against President Sebastián Piñera and former Health Minister Jaime Mañalich for the mishandling of the epidemic.
Quiero también dar la más.
And Chileans have criticised President Sebastián Piñera for attending his uncle's funeral, who died from COVID-19. President Piñera was accused of breaking his own government's coronavirus rules on attending the funeral of his 104-year-old uncle, former Archbishop Bernardo Piñera, along with more than 30 other people, when the maximum gathering currently allowed is of 10 people. The president also asked for the casket to be opened so he could say his last goodbye, despite the warnings of many of those present that it violated safety protocols imposed during the COVID-19 pandemic. Last year, the Vatican announced an investigation into Bernardino Piñera for sexually abusing a minor 50 years ago.
I also wanted today to open the coffin to say goodbye to my husband, and I cannot do it. And why can't President Piñera do it? I think it should be fair to everyone.
If I were an authority or a person who had a political office, the first thing I would have to do is not only be an example, but also show the example. The first thing I have to do is be respectful of the law and endure the pain like every Chilean and like everyone else.
A federal judge in Brazil has ordered President Jair Bolsonaro to wear a face mask in public after the far-right leader repeatedly flouted coronavirus measures. Judge Renato Borelli ordered Bolsonaro, who has famously compared the novel coronavirus to a little flu, to stop ignoring the capital city's mask decree or face a fine of about $400. The decision also applies to Bolsonaro's cabinet and staff. Masks have been mandatory in public in Brasilia since April in a bid to curb the spread of the virus. Bolsonaro regularly breaks the social distancing measures in place in the capital, offering handshakes and hugs at rallies of his supporters, usually without wearing a mask. And in other news, Venezuela commemorated the 199th anniversary of the Battle of Carabobo, in which the South American country won its independence from Spain. The battle on June 24, 1821, saw independence leader Simón Bolívar commanding 6,000 soldiers to deliver a decisive victory against the Spanish army and secure the independence of Venezuela and establishment of the Republic of Gran Colombia. The Venezuelan government organised a military parade in Carabobo State, where the epic battle took place, to mark the date. During the event, Defence Minister Vladimir Padrino López highlighted the importance of commemorating the battle. The Trinidad-based Caribbean Court of Justice has stated that no later than Wednesday it will issue an order to continue to put on hold the Guyana Court of Appeal ruling on the election results case until it hears the matter on July 1st. This comes after the Chief Elections Officer submitted his report to the chairperson of the Guyana Elections Commission on Tuesday, showing that the ruling, a Partnership for National Unity, had won the March 2nd polls. That evening, the opposition People's Progressive Party Civic served notice of the appeal court's ruling to the Caribbean Court, which established that the words "more votes cast" be interpreted to mean more valid votes cast, and that the winner of the elections not be announced for 3 days. The French government has noted that the COVID-19 pandemic is getting worse in French Guiana and sent human and material reinforcements. As of Tuesday, the local government had recorded nearly 2,600 confirmed cases and 8 COVID-19 deaths, but officials fear the number of cases will quickly hit 10,000. Among the resources sent are 15 ventilators, as well as other medical equipment and medicine.
French Guiana will receive a delivery of equipment as of Wednesday, so that means tomorrow at 11 a.m. with a unit from the Civil Security Field Hospital, which includes 20 beds for general medicine, an operating theater, 11 tents, and which will be armed with 42 people, including 27 caretakers and 14 logisticians. 5 have already arrived yesterday. 34 will arrive tomorrow and 3 on Friday. It will be deployed to receive non-COVID patients.
The main message is that field hospital, yes, but not just any hospital and not at any price. So today we are surprised not to hear about additional resuscitation resources to treat COVID-19 cases. That's what we need. The hospital has been sick for years. For years, we have been short of resources. And now the government is admitting failure by telling us that they are going to set up 20 beds to treat non-COVID-19s. We will be able to do what we have been doing for years. But what we're trying to do is increase the treatment capacity of the COVID-19s.
And we're taking a very short break now, but we will be right back with more, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. A spokesperson for China's Ministry of National Defense noted on Wednesday that shifting blame onto China will not help the United States solve its domestic problems. Spokesman Wu Qian referred to an article published on June 15th in which the US Secretary of Defense Mark Esper stated that the United States and its regional allies will resist China's acts to chip away at the sovereignty of other nations and undermine international rules and norms, in addition to criticizing China's response to the coronavirus pandemic. Wu said the situation in the East China Sea and the South China Sea is generally stable thanks to the joint efforts of countries in the region. He also rejected US meddling in other countries' internal affairs.
For some time, the leader of the U.S. Defense Department has been hyping so-called China threat, in total disregard of the facts, attempting to sow discord among the countries in the region while stigmatizing China's anti-COVID-19 efforts. We express a strong dissatisfaction at and firm opposition to these acts. China and the United States are both important countries in the world. Cooperation serves the interests of the two sides, and conflict can only hurt both. And cooperation is the only correct choice for both sides. The relations between the two militaries are an important part of the ties between China and the United States. It is the responsibility of the military personnel of both sides to maintain the general stability of military-to-military ties, which serves the interests of both countries and meets the shared aspiration of the international community.
And Chinese authorities have noted that the coronavirus outbreak that has infected over 250 people in Beijing since early June is now under control.
The Beijing epidemic directly linked to Xinfadi market is basically under control. The prevention and control work has achieved positive results, but at the same time we have discovered household and workplace cluster infections and cases of community transmission.
The number of cases clearly linked to the Xinfadi market is 253, accounting for 98.8% of the total of 256 confirmed cases, and another 3 cases are under further investigation and verification.
The 22nd high-level summit between China and the European Union ratified the commitment to finalise a bilateral investment agreement this year. But relations between the two giants are still weighed down by geopolitical conflicts and pressures from the United States.
The summit between China and Europe ratified the will to advance on issues of the economic agenda, but many were also reminded of the deep differences between the Asian giant and the old continent. However, Beijing doesn't seem willing to give up so quickly on its aspiration to build a Euro-Asian alliance.
It's clear that China has an important economic interest with the European Union. In fact, initiatives such as the 17+1 cooperation, China and Central and Eastern European countries, is considered by many experts as a bridge that China is building to eventually reach the European market. The European Union has tried to sabotage some of these Chinese projects, particularly in countries that are not yet part of the European Union, such as some nations in the Balkans. This is a self-destructive stance, as China's focus on Europe is still within the boundaries of the European Union, and as soon as the European nations stop seeing China as a threat, they can start enjoying the benefits of this cooperation, which is meant to benefit both sides.
China is a partner of the European Union, not a rival, President Xi Jinping said at a meeting, urging both sides to become major forces in safeguarding world peace and stability. But over the past few months, the European position has taken a different path.
It is not easy for the European Union to get caught up in the growing tension between East and West. However, the European Union has its own economic interests with China and should focus on building a more independent foreign policy towards China.
Far from economic issues, China's main reservations with Europe are related to its political positions on long-standing issues such as the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. Beijing has ratified on several occasions that these are internal affairs and that it will not tolerate any external interference.
With regards to Western interference in China's internal affairs in Hong Kong, I would say that the colonial mentality still haunts the minds of some officials or politicians in the West. I believe that in light of the Black Lives Matter protests worldwide, officials in those nations should focus first on their internal problems rather than interfering with those of China.
In a complex post-COVID-19 world, where even the great powers have been hit hard, the question remains on whether Europe will opt for an independent relationship with China or whether it will bow to the United States, even against its own interests.
Iranzi Peraza, Telesur, Beijing, China.
The defeat of Nazi Germany by the heroic Red Army of the Soviet Union was commemorated in Moscow's Red Square this Wednesday with the annual Victory Day parade. 75 years ago, on June 24, 1945, the first victory parade of the Red Army was held in Moscow to honour all those who fought in the Great Patriotic War. More than 230 military vehicles drove past the vast square this Wednesday, ranging from renowned World War II-era T-34 tanks to Topol intercontinental ballistic missile launchers. The parade on the ground was accompanied by a flyover of helicopters, bombers and fighter planes. Military units from several former Soviet republics also took part in the parade.
It is impossible to imagine what would have happened to the world if the Red Army did not stand up to its defense. Our soldiers didn't want either war, nor other countries, nor fame, nor honors. They strived to finish the enemy, get the victory, and come back home. They paid an irretrievable price for the liberty of Europe.
And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov held talks in Moscow on Tuesday with his Venezuelan counterpart Jorge Arias following the 75th annual Victory Day parade. Lavrov said that Russia stands with Venezuela in its determination to counter foreign interference, while Arias thanked Russia for supporting the country under years of illegal US sanctions. It was recalled that Russia's Rosneft oil company has also come under fire from the United States and was sanctioned by the US Treasury Department earlier this year, forcing it to transfer its assets from Venezuela.
We stand with your determination to counter foreign dictation, counter rude attempts to interfere into internal affairs of the sovereign country, and counter attempts to provoke a forceful regime change.
During the last years of suffering and difficulties in Venezuela, Russia has proved that it is not only ready to protect international law, but also gave a hand of hope to Venezuela to overcome sanctions and the legal blockade of the country.
In France, Paris's Orly airport, which has been closed since March 31st, will resume commercial passenger flights on June 26. However, only around 25 destinations are to be served via 70 takeoffs and landings, compared to 600 a day before the coronavirus crisis grounded aircraft worldwide. Officials expect around 8,000 passengers to pass through the airport, less than 10% of the daily average of around 90,000. As part of new safety measures, the airport has installed screens at counters and sanitizer dispensers, along with thousands of signs to ensure travellers observe social distancing. Thermal cameras will screen travellers on arrival to help detect any potential coronavirus cases. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Taken part in the first COVID-19 vaccine trial on the African continent at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital in Soweto, South Africa. The country is set out to inject 2,000 people with the potential vaccine developed by the Jenner Institute of Oxford University, which is already under evaluation in the United Kingdom. And South African authorities have opened a new coronavirus field hospital in an abandoned Volkswagen factory in the Eastern Cape province. At the opening of the hospital, Health Minister Dr. Sweli Mkhize noted there are more than 27,000 beds for the COVID-19 patients and over 400 quarantine sites across the country. The factory in the southern city of Port Elizabeth was converted into the hospital in just 7 weeks and has 3,300 beds. South Africa has reported the highest number of coronavirus cases on the continent at over 100,000.
A total of 3,300 beds, coming along with oxygen reticulation. All of this is a very important combination of what our needs are at this point. This has been now established within a record time.
The rapid rise of the number of people testing positive in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro is overwhelming our health institutions and its frontline workers. As a corporate citizen of the Metro,
in India, the New Delhi government is converting a spiritual centre into a coronavirus isolation facility with over 10,000 beds. The facility is spread over almost 3,000 square metres and will be divided into blocks, with each block housing 100 beds. It will have biodegradable cardboard beds, 500 urinals, 450 bathrooms, oxygen facilities and wheelchairs, among other elements. The facility is expected to open on July 1st. India has now reported the 4th highest number of coronavirus cases in the world, at over 472,000.
Isolation center and hospital. Isolation center meaning that most of the patients will be mild or asymptomatic, and 10% of the beds will have oxygen support with them, so that in case the health of or the condition of the patient deteriorates, we are able to take them to a tertiary healthcare dedicated COVID hospital in time. So the idea behind using cardboard beds is that the utility is limited, and the material which we use is biodegradable. So for say if we had to run this center for another 6 months, after that we will be able to either dispose them off in an environmental friendly way, or even if we donate them, they are able to finally dispose it off in a very environmentally friendly way.
And Telesur English is now reaching more areas across the Caribbean. You can find us on the following channel under the following settings. And we've now come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And for our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on Starsat channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. And of course, you can also join us on social media. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.